Okay? There's a difference between saying the American government when you are literally a part of the American government and you're, utilizing the existing free speech laws and boundaries to criticize the American state with this radical act of protest is entirely different than utilizing the free speech laws to basically say, let's go kill some black people, dude. How sick is that? Yeah, obviously these two things are different. We're just going to continue working, okay, through this. You'll be fine. Yes, the FPS looks off. I know.
Civil unrest, the moment they spot what they've judged to be, quote, hateful content. Or to this very country, where police have carried out raids against citizens suspected of posting anti-feminist comments online as part of, quote, combating misogyny on the internet.
Like, that's the biggest threat to Germany and Europe. It's not Russia. Like, I mean, this like outflanks even their own other propaganda. When they turn around and say stuff like, oh, it's like, you're supposed to say, no, Russia and China are major problems for Europe. But he's like, nah, you know what the biggest problem for Europe is? You're not fascist enough, okay? It's just like silly aesthetic bullshit.
A day of action. I look to Sweden, where 2 weeks ago the government convicted a Christian activist for participating in Koran burnings that resulted in his friend's murder. And as the judge in his case chillingly noted.
Yeah, they're not doing enough Quran burnings, dude. That's the real issue in Europe.
Sweden's laws to supposedly protect free expression do not, in fact, grant, and I'm quoting, a free pass to do or say anything without risking offending the group that holds that belief. And perhaps most concerningly, I look to our very dear friends, the United Kingdom, where the backslide away from conscience rights has placed the basic liberties of religious Britons in particular in the crosshairs. A little over 2 years ago, the British government charged Adam Smith Connor, a 51-year-old physiotherapist and an Army veteran, with the heinous crime of standing 50 meters from an abortion clinic and silently praying for 3 minutes. Not obstructing anyone, not interacting with anyone, just silently praying on his own. And after British law enforcement spotted him and demanded to know what he was praying for, Adam replied simply, it was on behalf of the unborn son he and his former girlfriend had aborted years before. Now, the officers were not moved. Adam was found guilty of breaking the government's new buffer zones law, which criminalizes silent prayer and other actions that could influence a person's decision within 200 meters of an abortion facility. He was sentenced to pay thousands of pounds in legal costs to the prosecution. Now, I wish I could say that this was a fluke, a one-off crazy example of a badly written law being enacted against a single person, but no. This last October, just a few months ago, the Scottish government began distributing letters to citizens whose houses lay within so-called safe access zones, warning them that even private prayer within their own homes may amount to breaking the law.
What the? No, what are you? Oh, I don't even know what this is. The problem is, when conservatives do this stuff, they just flood the zone with a bunch of ridiculous, erroneous claims, okay? And they flood the market, so you have to actively go through each individual thing that he's talking about and give additional details. But in terms of like, Scotland is going to start prosecuting people for praying in their own homes if they're near an abortion clinic is so psychotic, dude. Yeah, that's just not correct, okay? They're not going to do that. What would be the purpose of that? He's just lying. And I think what's funny, I mean, what's interesting about a lot of this is that, like, lying is such a powerful tool. I think it's kind of underrated. Okay? I think lying is kind of underrated, especially when there's no one that's, like, willing to actively go up against the lie and be like, especially when there's no universally trusted resource of information. Like, mainstream media dying is a is truly awful in this regard. The public's confidence has been undermined. They don't care about mainstream resources, and you can just seek out alternative sources of information that basically correspond to your worldview and your biases. So now you could just literally turn around and be like, yeah, this is what's going on. They're going to start killing you if you even think about Christ.
Naturally, the government urged readers to report any fellow citizens suspected guilty of thought crime. In Britain and across Europe, free speech, I fear, is in retreat.
Basically living on every meme trope, unfair stereotype of Americans being ignorant morons. Quote, I looked to Brussels where EU commissars warn citizens that they intend to shut down social media. That's a whopper distortion of EU law. EU can't shut down social media when they spot hateful content. If they could, there'd be no social media, which is like giant says. Yeah, I mean, obviously they can't. In this country, Germany, where police have carried out raids against citizens suspecting of posting anti-feminist comments online as a part of combating misogyny on the internet, a day of action. So the irony here is that Germany actually does have incredibly restrictive speech laws, and they actively target pro-Palestinian demonstrators and brutally stop them. They have quite literally deported pro-Palestinian figures that come from other European countries. Okay? They have barred entry of pro-Palestinian speakers. Of course, J.D. Vance is not going to talk about that. He's going to talk about some silly shit. Police didn't raid people for posting anti-feminist comments. They arrested 45 men for offenses including the following: threatening rape, threatening to post nude photos of an ex, demanding nude photos from strangers, distributing videos depicting torture of women. Yeah. If J.D. Vance wanted to truly talk about some of the insanity happening in terms of like a lack of free speech in Germany, which obviously they have infinitely more restrictive standards for speech in Germany, he could have actually talked about a real story. Except he wants to do that in America, so of course he's not going to talk about that. BKR is the name of the Federal Criminal Police Office of Germany. BKR's raids were timed to mark International Women's Day last year. They didn't arrest a single person for anti-feminist comments. They arrested men for horrible criminal offenses. BKA. Bundeskriminalamt. Part of the project, the BKA specifically searched for misogynistic postings with criminal relevance on online platforms. They were pre-assessed by the ZIT from a criminal law perspective, and after the suspected authors have been identified, were forwarded via the judicial route to the relevant public prosecutors' offices in the states in order to decide on an initiation of appropriate investigations. The basis for the initiative was, among other things, a ruling by the Cologne Higher Regional Court on June 9th, 2020, which confirmed that blanket denigration of women can be punishable as incitement to hatred under Section 130 of the German Criminal Code. Misogyny on the internet exists in many different forms. In addition to inciting hatred, the ZIT and the BKA were also able to identify postings in which women were sexually slandered and assaulted, in which so-called nude photos were publicly requested, in which rape and sexual coercion were publicly advocated, and in which torture and videos were publicly distributed. In Sweden, 2 weeks ago, the government convicted a Christian activist for participating in Quran burnings. The Swedish government can't convict anybody. The Swedish court is independent of the government under Chapter 11, Section 3. Fined Salwan Najam 297 pounds, $374 with a conditional sentence. Chapter 16, Section 8 of the 1962 Swedish Criminal Code is below. It's a crime to express contempt against a group of persons due to their religious beliefs. Like, I remember some of the details of the Quran burnings that happen all the time in Sweden and whatnot. And it's like, yeah, that's a hate crime. J.D. Vance is not upset that J.D. Vance just doesn't want hate crimes to be prosecuted. That's the difference. That's the difference. Most concerningly, our dear friends in the UK, where a British government charged a 51-year-old physio and army veteran with the heinous crime of silently praying 50 meters from an abortion clinic. Firstly, the British government did not a criminal offense. He was given a £100 fixed penalty notice by police on the day of the incident. Bournemouth City Council took him to court where he refused to pay the fine. Charge was failing to comply with Public Spaces Protection Order under the Antisocial Behavior Crime and Policing Act of 2014, breached by where he deliberately chose to stand and what time he chose to stand there. A little later in the day, elsewhere, no problem. Like, from the American perspective, this doesn't make sense, okay? Because we don't have rules like this for the most part. And when police want to actually enforce an action, there's a million different ways to do so. You can say, oh, this is obstruction of justice. You can say, oh, this is trespass. Europeans have some, weird ass restrictions that are supposed to promote tolerance or supposed to prosecute intolerance, but not like actively prosecute it in the sense that like you're going to jail, but simply give you like a fine. Okay. That's it. America is infinitely more ruthless in its criminal justice system in terms of like how we arrested, for example, 3,100 college campus protesters for the crime, which is not even a crime at all. At least it's still not a crime yet, of offending the feelings of the big bad state of Israel that is also a small bean. Okay? We did that. And that was the Biden administration. In Europe, they're like, hey, if you, I don't know, pray around an abortion clinic at a certain time, yeah, you're going to get a 100-pound fine. That's it. And then these guys understandably want to protest against it, knowing full well that it is red meat for the reactionaries. The law is titled Abortion Services Safe Access Zone, Scotland Act of 2024. The full act is below and doesn't take very long to read. There's nothing whatsoever in the Scottish legislation that criminalizes private prayer in your home. I mean, I could have told you that without knowing what that law was, because that would be an insane thing to advocate for. The act of burning the Quran isn't in and of itself against hate speech laws. It's that he at the same time called Arab and Muslims cockroaches and desecrated the Quran. It's crazy your beliefs on this, the censorship of internet and freedom of speech. You should be advocating for this with your view on Hamas, etc. Big fan here, but this is a dumb take from you. Wait, what? Dude, are you stupid? Is it difficult for you to comprehend that I just literally explained that all of these rules, or even in a country where there are restrictions against prosecution, they simply don't give a... Okay? Do you not hear the words that are coming out of my mouth? I'm saying that European rules, European restrictions around speech are in some ways actually less restrictive than the American criminal justice system that is very heavy-handed in immediately engaging in mass arrests. You are dumb. This Scottish law is disgusting. You are defending it. Not a hate crime. It's a book. For sake, hate crime would actually be targeting a specific person. Wait. Okay. It's not a hate crime for sake. You're just simply burning a cross. Is that your argument? It's not, if it's not deliberately targeting a specific black person, as long as you're burning a cross in a public area, that's not a hate crime. What a great argument this is. Hey, excuse me, officer, I just drew a swastika. It's not a hate crime. It's not targeting a specific Jewish person. It's targeting all Jews. Great stuff. You don't even know what the standard for a hate crime is. Yes, we can burn flags, blocks, etc., but sorry, I can't. But a Quran, first of all, burning a Quran or removing the context and the nuance from the act of burning a Quran is hilarious in this instance, because it is akin to saying, oh, I'm sorry, we can burn flags, but we can't burn a cross. Okay? That's what you're simply stating, because there is additional symbolism surrounding this. Okay? Just so you understand. Or, oh, we can draw, I don't know, circles and squares on the side of the street, but we can't draw a swastika. It would be considered a hate crime. It's still a hate crime. Whether you want that hate crime to exist or not, or whether you want no regulations surrounding that sort of thing or not, doesn't change the reality that the intention behind it is very deliberately to spark hatred against certain marginalized communities. Okay? I don't know why every single person just simply across the board assumes that there is no nuance or context in these situations. You just like try to make a blanket statement and move on, thinking that I'm not going to be able to address it. We can say and do as we want as long as no one is hurt. Right to peaceful protest and speaking your mind. I know. I don't disagree with you, except the intention behind burning a Quran, and also simultaneously, as chatters from Sweden have correctly pointed out, saying all Muslims are vermin that must be forcibly removed from the country, is very clearly a little bit extra than just, oh, I'm against this religion, that's why I'm burning the Quran. That's why the act of burning the Quran is never specifically just an anti-religious act. Okay? Chatter wants to commit legal actions whilst not being hated by those he's directly offending. Yeah. Huh. Yeah, we can incite violence as long as we do not throw the punches ourselves. Can you explain burning a cross versus burning the American flag? Yes, easy. Burning the American flag is a criticism and a protest against the nation state. Burning a cross is to say black people must be killed because that's what it accompanied in the past and still to this day. When you burn a cross, you are going to engage in lynchings. It is a telltale sign to try to get stochastic terror to happen. Whether you are going to do it yourself or hope that others want to do it does not matter. Okay? There's a difference between saying the American government when you are literally a part of the American government and you're, utilizing the existing free speech laws and boundaries to criticize the American state with this radical act of protest is entirely different than utilizing the free speech laws to basically say, let's go kill some black people, dude. How sick is that? Yeah, obviously these two things are different. And I say this as someone who obviously benefits tremendously from the existing First Amendment, the First Amendment that I guess, the American government is still held on to. I don't understand. We're just burning a mosque. It's a radical act of protest against the religion. Anyway, you're not giving good examples. Burning a cross is constitutionally protected in the U.S., Virginia v. Black. I'm not saying that it's an appropriate thing regardless because it's still an incitement of hatred and it's accompanied by a litany of hate crimes regardless. In the same exact way that